with the pump fake and one dribble inside to the long two, and he makes it. That's been his game his whole career. But look at him smiling. We go, my bad. The long two.
Welcome everyone to another episode of The Long Two. I am Pete Rogers. He is Natty Wallach, and we are a Camilla Stanthony podcast that have been known to talk about fantasy basketball. And Natty, we are back here, and we have been known to talk about this season that has fully begun. How you doing?
Happy New Year's Eve day.
Thank you.
What's
kindly.
up? Enjoy the last of this incredible year. It's almost gone, so drink it in.
Yeah. Well, you, the listeners, dear listeners, will be listening to this, and the new year will have already come upon us. So you can bask in the glory of 2021.
Yeah, I hope everybody stayed safe during the festivities and that you don't feel too bad today.
Yeah. That is what we always hope. We've played around with kind of different release days, and I think this is what we're going to settle on for now that the NBA season has started. I personally like the Friday release. I feel like that way we can talk about how the week has been, talk about trends of the week, and recap those while also looking ahead to the coming week. Give you some waiver ads, give you some studs and duds. We're going to bring that back. So I'm thinking that the Friday release is a good time for us to be able to give you guys the most relevant and actionable fantasy advice possible. What do you think, Natty? Are you on board with this new spectacular release time?
Well, 2020 has showed me that the days of the week don't really matter anymore, and time is somewhat
Fair.
subjective. So I don't give an F. There's ebbs and flows throughout the NBA season, but they're not really relegated to, weeks. Like those are sort of just arbitrary cutoffs for the NBA and for hockey too. Like in baseball, you have series, and in football, It's week to week. So the day of the week matters less, I think. So I think it'll be just great, and people will have some informative Friday pre-weekend waiver wire hunting info.
Saucy. All right. Well, since the season is a week old, or a little bit over a week old, I will say, we figured what better way to start than talking about the biggest surprises of so far this 2021, basically, NBA season. And I have to say, Natty, as we are recording this, they are currently the only undefeated team in the NBA. Obviously, I think they play. Who do they play tonight? The Bucks. I think, the Sixers. They play the Sixers tonight, New Year's Eve night, as we're recording this. So when you're listening to this, maybe they might have gotten their first loss, or they might still be rolling. And we're of course talking about the Orlando Magic. And I want to start us off here because to me, this has been one of the biggest surprises. When you look at like the historically bad teams, or the teams that people maybe don't consider as like upper echelon NBA, and the starts that they've gotten off to, we spent plenty of time on this show talking about the Suns. So the Suns looking good to start this year. Not a shocker in my book. The Kings looking good to start this year. Maybe it's a little bit of a shocker, but the Kings also have a lot of good young players, and Tybalt has stepped into that, has been basically phenomenal for them as a rookie. But for me, it's the Magic not only being undefeated, being the sole undefeated team, but you are getting like Markelle Fultz is looking like the first overall pick that people were kind of anticipating to him. 18 and point.
Is he?
Ooh, Natty.
Is
disagreeing.
Sorry, go on.
I was gonna rock his stats. 18 points per game, almost 4 boards, almost 6 assists. He's playing some defense, and I just think more so maybe than he is. This offense is moving and is effective and is flowing, and I feel like he's doing a lot of that work. And obviously, it helped that Terrence Ross just started this season absolutely on fire. The man was unconscious from downtown, and that's gone down a little bit, but now he's still averaging 43% from three. Vooch is averaging 45% from three. Mm-hmm. This Magic's team is just, they're saucy, they're spicy. And I feel like we we didn't give them enough credit when we were talking about potential Eastern teams that could sneak their way into the playoffs this year.
I'm going to throw cold water on this argument.
That's what you're here for, Natty, is to be the Debbie Downer.
Absolutely. It's cold outside. It's winter. So this is going to hurt. It will shock you because 2 of those wins of their 4 total are against Washington, which has absolutely no defense whatsoever. The other 2, the first win against the Heat was totally legit. And then they beat Oklahoma City, which is a young team that isn't exactly trying to win. So the resume is a little suspect, I think. The Magic, T-Sizzle, Fournier, Vooch look great. The Orlando Magic always play good defense, or at least competent defense. You know, Fultz is better. He's not the sort of player that I think you would have taken even in the top 10. He was supposed to have such a sweet shot before he was drafted. So whatever. I mean, Fultz looks better. That's the most important thing.
For a guy who is playing on a different team than what was drafted him for a top overall and was basically just like lambasted by the media and draped over the coals for just being a head case and not having a shot and having a hitch in his free throw shot. Like, I am impressed, and I give him lots of compliments for the start that he has had to this season.
Totally. He has improved. He looks like an actual NBA player now. The Philly situation is so fucked up because, you know, they had to make trade. Like, they just gave up assets and then they traded him for nothing, basically. It's everything that Philadelphia did really was such a disaster. But it was solved pretty quickly and, you know, no harm done. The Magic look like a good team so far, but I think some of that has to do with their hot shooting and with their opponents. And I don't think that either of them are sustainable. I think they'll come back down to earth, but I also think that Ross, Fournier, and Vooch are good. And they're good fantasy players, and they're going to get good volume this year. And if I'm Orlando and I don't have Jonathan Isaac this season, do you care that much about getting to the playoffs? Or are you hoping that Aaron Gordon and one of those other 3 players that are shooting well, you can combine and maybe get something special?
I think you could definitely get something good for Aaron Gordon. I mean, Aaron Gordon has been playing pretty well to start this year. He's certainly not been, he's been their fifth scoring option, which is, fine. It's not what I feel like a lot of people were anticipating and that's come from the fact that Terrence Ross, I mean, where did this come from? Like, did you have an inkling that Terrence Ross was going to be this at the start of the year?
Well, the past couple of seasons, Orlando's been interesting because not just because of their defense and how boring and no one watches them, boring they are, but they have had spells of hot shooting from their perimeter players, from Fournier and T-Sizzle. I mean, T-Sizzle, that's Terrence Ross's.
It says it right there in the name.
Right. And neither of them are old. They're both perimeter players for an Orlando team that doesn't get a lot of national attention. And you can say this about Vooch too. Like, if Vooch was a Knick, everyone would know his name, you know?
Yes,
so
100%.
Aaron Gordon has that to a certain extent as well, because even though he's a type of elite player in that he can do some things just magnificently well for a player that young, but it just never seems to click. All at the same time in Orlando. Like, if Isaac was there, if he wasn't hurt, then I believe that team could have made real waves this year just because of the defense and if they had enough shooting. But Aaron Gordon's still super young. He's 24, 25. I think the new NBA is showing some of us that you don't necessarily need to have a 3-point shot in order to be a successful player in the NBA, so long as the team around you is constructed properly. But Aaron Gordon also feels like the sort of player who can really help a playoff bound team. So around the trade deadline, if there is a trade deadline, who knows what the hell is going to happen. Like a player, a team that needs a wing, and if Orlando's not in it, like his defense, like the Nets. I think I said this 1 or 2 weeks ago. Like as a Nets viewer, I'm a Pistons fan, but I live in Brooklyn. But like they could use more defense. I feel like they can score with anybody really. Losing the mayor sucks, and we love Dinwiddie. But
yeah,
if everything does click and they play this well against real teams, then why can't they be a 4, 5, or 6 seed?
Yeah, no, they just the starts of this year has been really good for them. And yes, their schedule has been, but you play the schedule that's in front of you. And I think the biggest thing that's come out of it in my book is the fact that all of these pieces, all these young guys and Vooch and Terrence Ross, they are older, but like this team is starting to coalesce, and it's exciting, and it is just surprising that that they're looking the way that they are, and that there's just so much excitement about them. And so, it's long overdue. I feel like the Suns were the darlings of the bubble, and we fucking love the Suns. I can never say enough about this team. And they went and got Chris Paul, and like now everyone was like, oh yeah, the Suns are like gonna be this legit sneaky upstart in the West. And I thoroughly enjoy having a similar team in the West, in the East, like a sneaky upstart team, and well done to the Magic for being that team so far.
T Sizzle is 29, Vooch is 30, Evan Fournier is 28, Aaron Gordon is 25. This is a team with young vets. Like these are guys that you can have for the next 3 years and depend on that kind of production. So it does seem like a team with potential. If everything breaks their way, like they should be dangerous in the playoffs just because of their defense. So they'll be, the typical, no one wants to match up with, like the Pacers are every year.
Right. What's been a big surprise for you? Let's move on to you, my friend.
Okay, well, I just mentioned them. Let's talk about these Pacers and Domantas Sabonis?
Yeah, dude.
Victor Oladipo? Malcolm Brogdon?
A mild apology tour for us or certainly for me.
Oh, no, fuck Indiana. I don't care if I was wrong about predictions. They can go fuck themselves. I don't like that they're doing well.
I just didn't think that this team was going to be I just didn't know what this team was going to be. I didn't know. And what they've done is they've just decided as the Nuggets have decided with Jokic that okay, Sabonis is our offense. Like we are going to run through this guy, and it works because he is an exception. Like he can run an offense. He's extremely adept at passing. He can play it inside and on the block. Against the Celtics, so it's both those games, man, especially the first one in which the Pacers won. Sabonis was just his game was just coming effortlessly to him. And I will wholeheartedly say I was wrong about this team so far because wow, the pieces are looking, and I think it's because they've seemingly made the decision that Victor Oladipo is not their best player and shouldn't be treated as such. And it's actually Sabonis, and we're going to work through Sabonis.
They have a new coach. Depot seems healthy. What this team really has is multiple playmakers and multiple guys that can put the ball on the floor, multiple guys that can pass, multiple guys that you can run an offense through, and then Miles Turner and TJ Warren. It's a suddenly deep team now that they're playing just a little bit differently and now that everybody's healthy. So I mean, we could joke and say that they've played 3 shitty teams so far, but I'm not going to hate on the Celtics that way. However, what does encourage me is that they've beaten the 2 bad teams they've played, the Knicks and the Bulls, and they split with the competent team they've played, the Celtics. So to me, that means take care of business. When you play a worse team, you should win. And when you play another playoff team, you don't a split is fine. 500 is great. You don't want to get embarrassed. You want to be able to consider yourself at least equal to them, if not better. Sabonis just looks amazing. He looks so good. I mean, is he 25 too? Like that team is young and good. It has players. I mean, you could upgrade over Miles Turner, but
you know what? Miles Turner
why
from
do that?
right. He's looked really
Right.
good too. And
He's
fantasy
there, and
wise, he is crushed. I mean, the guy's averaging 5 blocks a game, which is just mind boggling to me. Like he is doing exactly what they need him to do, which is protect the paint. TJ Warren is not quite bubble TJ Warren, but certainly has some of that sauce. He's still not at all a 3-point shooter, but he's, doing plenty good shooting them long twos that we love so very, very much.
but this is sort of the team that everybody wants the new NBA to be, which is
Yes.
everyone is a scoring threat in
Mhm.
different parts of the floor, and they can move the ball around and they can run, and it's more democratic. It's not just a star and everybody revolving around them like it is in Houston. Like this team, depending on who's out there on the court, can play in different ways. Oladipo has always sort of been considered a complementary player who, after he left Oklahoma City and came to the Pacers, it seemed like he was the star. I think you can sort of say that about Brogdon and Sabonis too. Like these are guys that everyone has sort of assumed, okay, well, they're great 1Bs or they're great Robins.
Right.
But when you put them all together, that's a really fucking strong team. It's almost reminiscent to me of the Bad Boys too, because it's like all these guys are considered not faces of the franchise. Like people even hate on Depot, but now that he's healthy, you can see what he can do. He's played off of others before. If this team can really be cohesive, then that's super fucking dangerous. Because these guys, I mean, Sabonis on defense maybe, but this is a team that could make moves while also staying as strong as what they appear to be right now.
Yes, 100%. Just to your age point, Domantas Sabonis is 24 years old. He is the third youngest player on that team.
Totally. TJ Warren's
which is
27.
crazy.
Debo's 28. I mean,
Debo's 28.
these...
Brogdon's 28. Then they have McDermott off the bench and other guys. But like Domantas Sabonis, 24 years old. This is the thing that blows my mind every single time. I will never not blow my mind about basketball players. It's just how effing young these guys are. I mean, Tatum is still 19 and he's 7'5". It's incredible.
Yeah, and it's all over I mean, Ingram, 4 years can go by really quickly. And some of these guys are late bloomers. Some of these guys are just on the wrong teams. Like Depot was in the wrong role on the wrong team twice in a row. And he learned from that. And so when he arrived in Indiana, that's why he seemed like he could carry the franchise. But I think this is a really strong Pacers unit that doesn't necessarily need a star. Like if you put Harden on this team, depending on the two players you'd have to send back, I think it's still strong, but not necessarily actually better. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I certainly agree. Well, let's keep talking about teams. I liked how we're just kind of covering teams here because I want to talk about the hypersexual front court of the Cleveland Cavaliers.
I want to talk about them too. Let's go Central right on.
Let's talk about
good teams.
Sex Land, baby. Woo! We talked about Colin Sexton we did sleepers on bad teams a couple weeks ago. And I talked about Sexton. And he has been as advertised, 25 points a game. He's getting you a couple assists here, but really he is scoring that bucket and he is scoring it well. 53% from 3-on-3 and 3.3 attempts per game. Like he is getting it done. I think the bigger surprise is Darius Garland, who has more or less come out of nowhere to be like, there was so much not drama, so much commentary last year about and I certainly play it was just Colin Sexton and Darius Garland. Like, what are we going to do with this front court? What is the Cavs plan for this front court? And what do you know? Garland comes out this year, averaging 18.5 per game, almost 8 assists per game. Like the guy has been also shooting 45% from 3, shooting 5.5 attempts per game. Like this front court is incredible. I love it.
Cold water again.
You are the worst.
The game
Also,
against
I
the
said
Pistons
front court when I
was
meant backcourt. Clearly, I was confuzzled there.
The game against the Pistons was a double overtime game. So some of these numbers are inflated. And they lost to the New York Knicks, which is troubling, to say the least.
No, not when you have Julius Randle, 3-point sniper on your team.
I mean, they just matched up well against, like, Cleveland has injury issues. Kevin Love is injured again. There's real reasons to doubt undersized backcourts, like how effective they actually can be. And we've seen this over and over again, especially with the Celtics. I mean, we just saw this with Kemba. Like, how small can your guards get? And, you know, we talk about it with Trey. We talk about it with all the smaller guards. And it's something that people are allowed to talk about until you prove them wrong. So it's good to see that these guys are scoring. It's good to see that they're improving. It's good to see that the team looks better, because these are the two guys that Cleveland has really put the most resources and time into. Like Andre Drummond, Kevin Love, Larry like the front court doesn't actually matter at all.
Andre Drummond, who's currently averaging 19 and 15 with
and is
3 blocks.
And Nance looks like the best forward in the league. You know, but they're getting opportunities.
Right.
So, like, Drummond is in a contract year, and the Cavs probably want to be able to trade him for something. So, yeah, of course he's going to get all the opportunities in the world to thrive, but it's the guards that are getting him there. Like, if they suck, it's just going to be tougher for him to feed him. So the Cavs look better than expected. Beating the Sixers and losing to the Knicks doesn't make any fucking sense to me whatsoever, but whatever. That's fine. It's okay. They're a feisty team. Chidi Osman looks like he's improved. He's only 25 also. Their lone small forward over the past couple of years. Due to injuries, he's getting more time than I thought that he would. If he keeps using that, then he'll remain in the mix for minutes and shots in Cleveland as well. They look like a better team. It's so important to track young guards' improvement, and they're still super young. They're still super young.
They're both 22, 21. It's crazy.
It's very intriguing. It's great for Cavs fans. If they can get anything out of their front court this year to try to add to a young core, then more power to them. I mean, fuck them forever. Go Pistons. But you can finally see a direction on this team.
Yes.
After several times where anytime LeBron isn't there, they just sort of look lost. They don't look lost now.
No, 100%. And I think that's the biggest takeaway that I've had, not just like from a fantasy wise, you know who these guys are. And what's great has been the fact that, you know, these players, Sexton, Drummond, and then if you took the risk on Garland, he's over 80% rostered in ESPN. So presumably you know, there was still a market there for him, but I don't think people anticipated him being quite as, like, these guys have played much better than my at least initial anticipation was going to be for them. And it has led to the Cavs just look, and they're 3-1 at the time we were recording this. And you said it. They look like they have a direction after last year where I had so many questions about their front court, about their back court. Like, I was unsure that the Sexton Garland pairing was going to do anything or work at all. And power to them. It had so far through 4 games. Sexland is strong, baby.
And what's really going to show is their first time getting into a rut. You know, if they lose 3 games in a row, how are the young guards going to respond? You know, that's one of the reasons why it sucks not having Kevin Love there, actually, because as a vet and he
can get you out of this, right?
And he can just help stabilize it. You know, it's like Drum's there, but it's a pretty young team. I love their rookie. I really hope he comes back soon. They're a team full of potential that could get fast and that could get much better, much faster than we think.
Yeah.
Like, they have so many, like, who on that team outside of their rookie and 2 guards do you care about? You could move
No,
all of them.
there are so many pieces there to be moved. And that's, I think, the other exciting thing about the three teams that we've talked about. Pacers maybe less so, but certainly the Magic and Cavs. Both of these guys are young and these players are producing, and it just opens the door for either of these teams to make a move that is going to ultimately, bolster them for the rest of the season and into the seasons to come, Natty.
If you're a Cavs fan, I think you're feeling the best you've felt since LeBron left again.
Yeah, for sure. And as someone who's not a Cavs fan, I can speak for all Cavs fans when I say that you are correct, Natty. Thank you for recognizing us Cavs fans. Do you have another big surprise so far?
Sure. I have a negative one. Denver doesn't look great.
Yeah.
Denver does not look great. Now, here are their games. They lost to Sacramento. They lost to the Clippers. They beat Houston, but who cares? And then they lost to Sacramento again. That's not what you really want to see, but we talked about this, sometimes teams that go to the conference finals but don't win take a step back the following season. Mm-hmm. And, Gary Harris still, he's had, 2 okay games, but he's had 2 real stinkers too. Millsap looks a little bit old. Jamal Murray is injured now. I don't know how serious it is, but Monty Morris came in, and I like him as a backup point guard. He's good. Michael Porter Jr. has looked good. He scored 30 against the Kings, I think. Yeah, he scored 30 against the Kings. So that's a team where maybe that's an actual Harden destination. In the meantime, it's just the Joker show, and Will Barton is not enough for that team to really consider itself being serious, I think. You have Jamal Murray and you have Joker, obviously. Can you depend on Michael Porter Jr. to be an actual threat come playoff time? Yeah. I think that's the question for them.
I do want to just quickly say, not that there was anyone out there, but or not that anyone was getting after me for this, but maybe this is why everyone should temper their Jamal Murray expectations after the bubble. I understand that he came out of the bubble and people were like, Jamal Murray is a top 20 player now and blah, 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 blah. And yes, he played really good in the bubble, but let's see how he does out of it. And it hasn't been as good, obviously. He hasn't even been as good as he was last year. He's averaging less points, shooting worse from 3. I just think that the Jamal Murray hype, a little overblown, Natty.
You know what, though? I think that the Jazz and the Nuggets are going to meet in the playoffs again. I think it's going to be Doncic versus Murray again, and I think it's going to be an incredible series. I believe in both those dudes. Real hardcore. I think that they're the next wave, along with Devin Booker in the West.
Yeah.
It's
question
just
for you.
that, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to ask a question for you. If the Nuggets finish as a top 3 seed in the West, and Jokic continues to average 25, 11, and 13,
right.
Does he win MVP?
Yes, because top 3. I mean, if they're the 3rd seed, then no. You have to be the first or second seed.
He has to be one of the Nuggets. He has to lead the Nuggets to a 1 or 2 seed in order to win.
It's so hard to give MVP to a team that isn't the best or second best team. I mean, but this is a weird year. So if you took Jokic, if they're just separated by one game, then who cares?
Totally. But if you took Jokic off this Nuggets team would be trash.
Yeah. Okay. But you can say that about every team with an incredibly elite dude when you don't have another incredibly elite dude right next to him. The Lakers would still go to the playoffs if LeBron or AD wasn't there. But if both of them aren't there, then they don't. And we're seeing this in real time with the Warriors. As much as I love Steph, that team doesn't look great. They are looking better game to game. Wiseman is for real.
Yeah, Wiseman is for real. Our Steph MVP hype is maybe a little not.
But I don't know though. So what if they start slow they haven't played basketball in so long. It's maybe this is just a team with rust. So I think that they could accelerate. I'm not going to give up on them too early, but the first 2 games,
I just think you need to make sweeping statements with only 4 games of evidence so far, Natty, and stick
right.
by
That's
those
the thing.
statements.
So I'm looking down my nose at the Nuggets when in actuality I still feel like they're a top 5 seed in the playoffs, in a very tough conference. But I feel that way about Luka too. Luka, who I didn't mention along with the other 3 guards earlier. The Mavs don't look great, but
no, they don't.
They also were up on the Clippers by 50 points in his store. So we talked about the chaos in a season like this, and I think we're seeing it really early on.
Before you head on to some waiver ads and this week's studs and duds, or this coming week's studs and duds, I do want to quickly say, as we talk about biggest surprises, I feel like maybe I am in the minority here, but I want to give just a tiny bit of love to James Harden for missing practices, not working out or during the offseason, partying with his boss bitch in a strip club, and then dropping 40 on Portland.
Why do you say he didn't work out in the offseason?
Oh, no particular reason other than a quarantine belly? I feel like that's a fair descriptor.
Sometimes you need a strong core, and he's just like getting that real firm so that he can lift heavy things with his back.
Most incredible thing, the greatest fuck you is just Harden dealing with all, like, just quietly watching the world rip him apart. I mean, obviously wear a mask next time, Harden, please. Like, if you're going to be in a public setting, let's stop the spread of COVID. But then coming out and being like, oh, you guys don't think I am still good at basketball? Oh, you don't think that I have done anything this offseason to, play? Well, I'm going to drop 44 on Portland, and I'm going to shoot 57 from the field and 46 from 3. So just want to give a little
when
love.
Shaq wouldn't stay in shape in the offseason, and then he'd come back and he was still really good.
And everyone would be like, oh my God, is Shaq still good? Yeah, I don't know about that Shaq guy. And then Shaq just dominates because Shaq was just a giant fucking bully.
I don't want to comment. The Houston thing is so stupid. Stupid. To me, it's just ridiculous.
Just a little Harden love.
It's just bad that a franchise, an agent, and a player, and the union and the NBA would let something get so out of control. Like, I don't even mean about the social media stuff. Like, you can't have one of your marquee players fucking up your new COVID protocols like this.
No, you can't.
Like, that's on the union too. Like, you just can't. Harden's one of the 5 most important players in the NBA. You can't let that happen from a business point of view. This is one of the faces of your league. Like, you're trying for the safety of all of your employees. So Adam Silver, as soon as the dispute started, he really should have called everyone and been like, listen, it will all get figured out. Everyone keep your head down and follow the rules. James, you'll probably end up on a title contender. Just give it some patience, like everybody knows. Instead, it's all fucking on fire. Everyone's pissed off. The Rockets do have a chance to be a playoff team. Everyone's seeing what Christian Wood can do. It's just a real shame because it seems like no one was in charge of anything at any point in time. And, Daryl Morey's
automated tweet. Oh my God. It's just the NBA is great. The NBA is a living, breathing reality show, and I love every second of it.
I mean, honestly, it just makes me think that Tillman Fertitta is a bad businessman because it's like, if this is how you treat something this important, whatever. Yeah. I don't want to talk about them. It's stupid that they are letting an opportunity to be a good team just disappear right in front of them.
Totally. All right, let's get into waivers and studs and duds. But before we do that, we're going to take a quick ad break. All right. Still early in the season, very early, obviously. And, Natty, I will say, You wrote a piece over on faketeams.com about 7 players to stream in fantasy basketball. And this is an idea, or it's a mode of roster construction that I have very much enjoyed in my years playing fantasy basketball, which is basically dedicating one spot of your roster to streaming. And so it's a player who you can add off waivers, who's widely available. They're going to give you a couple good weeks, or maybe one good week, whatever it is. You're playing a hot hand, and then it's just when someone else emerges on the waiver wire who you're like, oh, I got to go get this person, there's like a clear and obvious player to drop. Because as I just told you, Natty, before we started recording this, I was contemplating I was going to make a waiver wire ad, and I did ultimately. And I was figuring out who I was going to drop, and I couldn't because I was like, ow, I like my team so much. Ultimately, put the rookie Obi Toppin onto my IR, so he's done for the year. And I went and got myself Robert Williams III. And I promise this is Dr. Pete talking and not super hyped Celtics fanboy Pete, who has been waiting years for Time Lord, really just 2, but waiting for Time Lord to emerge and claim his rightful spot as the Celtics starting big man. But Robert Williams is 4% rostered in ESPN leagues. He's averaging 7.5 points, 5.8 rebounds, almost 1 assist, and 3.1 stocks per game. And he's doing this on 17 minutes for the Celtics. He's the backup behind Daniel Tice. But those numbers, only 7 other players in the NBA right now are averaging more than 7.5, half an assist, and 2.5 stocks. And it's Karl Anthony Towns, Ben Simmons, Andre Drummond, Miles Turner, Christian Wood, Jeremy Grant, and Michael Porter Jr. Obviously, those guys you're not getting off waivers. Obviously, those guys are also scoring a lot more points than good old Time Lord Bob Williams. But still, that stat line alone, he's a top 75 player on ESPN's player rating, ahead of Towns, ahead of Steven Adams, ahead of Brook Lopez, those kinds of bigs. And his play has just looked so good. And he's had games in which he's gotten more than 20 minutes per game. And in those games, he's either gotten double-digit points, double-digit rebounds. He's had 11 stocks combined between those 2 games. I think that there's the opportunity for him to really step into a bigger role with the Celtics, start averaging like 20 to 22 minutes per game. And we're going to see him reliably get you like 8 points, 10 boards, and get you 3 to 5 stocks per game. And that is just a lot of stats, a lot of fingers in different stat categories that you can really utilize from a big man. And I really like his potential. So I think if you're in a dynasty league, you should 100% go get him, because I like where he's going. And even if you're in a redraft league, he might not fit your team right now, but if you've got the space to stash him, I definitely think you should stash him. At the very least, hit the little flag notification so that you can keep track of him, because he, in a starting role or even in solid 20 plus minutes per game, could be a very, very reliable fantasy producer for you.
The other reason I really like picking up Time Lord is that I believe the Celtics are giving up interior points like it's their job.
Like a motherfucker.
I'm pretty sure they're last in opponents' field goal percentage within 5 feet. They're just, now some of that is because their perimeter defense is good, so you have to feed it inside, but you would like to see more defense there. Time Lord will provide that. There's no reason to think that the Celtics won't try to give opportunities to their young players that they've put resources into. So I think sort of course, his minutes will increase through the season. You know, like this is Tristan Thompson's injured right now. There's 4 games of data. Like there, you know, Time Lord's still really young. The Williams brothers are both still really young. They're bringing them along in a smart way, I think. And, you know, like give them a little bit of a buffer. You don't have to start right away. But by the end of the year, I hope that the Celtics have figured out their center position and either given it to the young Time Lord or, you know, upgraded in some kind of crazy way. But yeah, love Williams, love the kind of opportunity he should be able to get in Boston. And, you know, streaming is also fun because you get to ride waves and you get to pick up players that you like but shouldn't be rostered, really.
Yeah.
Also, Time Lord is just one of the best nicknames in sports right now. Like, you should believe in that.
You should solely pick your fantasy team from exceptional nicknames. I feel like we've done this before.
It comes from a bad thing.
even though it's because Time Lord isn't on time, which is ironic because he's the Lord of Time. But is it ironic because he can manipulate time?
Speaking of people that can manipulate time, my dude Slow-Mo Kyle Anderson. Look at that fucking segue. Happy New Year, everybody. Nice fucking job. Yeah.
Killed it. Killing
Big high five to everybody.
Big high five to everyone. Talk to me about your boy.
You know what? Mic drop. Let's just end it.
Mic drop. We're done. And that's the podcast. Hope you enjoyed it, everyone.
Yeah. Slow-Mo Kyle Anderson is going to change some people's fantasy leagues because first of all,
to change the world.
It's a dude who is going to be able to get a lot more minutes and volume and shots because Ja Morant is out and 3J is out. And right now it seems like Kyle Anderson is the best player on that team. He is averaging 16 points per game, 8+ rebounds per game. He had 9 assists versus Boston last night. Yeah. Okay. The team isn't going to have Ja for at least 3 weeks, maybe more like 5, in which case maybe it'll be more like 10 because why rush him back when you're
the Grizzlies are like pretty notorious for very slowly bringing players back.
And why not? Like this is Ja Morant is your future. You shouldn't fuck around with that. And 3J is your future. You shouldn't fuck around with that. Slow-Mo Kyle Anderson, while still young, he doesn't need to be your future. So why not showcase him? Also, he just fucking looks tremendous. I am advising people to stream him this coming week, even though he only has 3 games on the schedule. And those 3 games are the Lakers, the Cavs, and the Nets. But here's why I think it's a good idea. First of all, those teams might not play their start. Well, Cleveland doesn't matter, but the Lakers and the Nets might not play their stars against Memphis, right? Because they're like, we should be able to beat this team when they're down 2 when they're down their 2 best players. So maybe LeBron and AD and KD and Kyrie don't play, or some combination of them don't play. Also, Slow-Mo is the definition of good player, bad team in this situation. There's like few other people who can benefit from this exact, like he's not going to Wally Pip anybody, but like he's there right now. He's big, he's slow. No one really knows how to play him. He's
big, he's slow. Recognize us.
No one understands. He slows down time in ways that a couple of Europeans also do. Like Luka can do that. Yeah. And then all of a sudden the ball has moved and you don't really know how or why he got there or why it changed position. Like he's too slow for people to really keep track of. It's real fucking strange. It's a superpower. I love him in this situation. I think you should ride him as long as 3J and Ja are out.
All right. Well, there you go. Kyle Anderson. That is a ringing endorsement. And it was going to be a delightful segue into studs and duds. Maybe I'll try to change my dud, but my dud was going to be the entire Grizzlies roster this week.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, 3 games and 2 of them are against.
And they're playing the Lakers and Brooklyn. And even the Cavs, man. The Cavs are allowing the 1, 2, 3, 4th fewest points right now on a per game basis. So like I'm not against that. Anyways, I take your ringing endorsement of Kyle Anderson. And
9 dimes against Boston is for real. That's impressive.
You love that. You love that. You love to see that. I think you can. I will amend my dud for this week, and instead of saying the entire Grizzlies roster, I will say the entire Grizzlies roster except for Kyle Anderson. So there you go.
Nice job.
Thank you.
Because he's not a moving target. He makes you the moving thing, and it's like when you fire, it's like so far in front of him, it doesn't matter. He's incredible.
He is quite an enjoyable player to watch because he does just move at a pace you don't see in the NBA that much anymore.
Like maybe that's a guy that the real playoff teams should have because it's just a curveball, it's just, I'm throwing this change up. You cannot hit it. You don't even know why it works. And it's going to make you look foolish.
God damn it. It does. Well, since we're already on duds, who's your dud for this week? This coming week?
My dud is another player who's only playing 3 games this week. And it's a player that I really like and that I have endorsed picking up. So call me a hypocrite if you want to, but my dud is Thomas Bryant. The Wizards, who look dreadful, aside from Beal and Westbrook, Bryant looks a little bit better than dreadful. But this coming week, they're playing Philadelphia, Boston, and Miami. Philadelphia, you're probably going up against Embiid. I don't think that the Sixers would take that game off against the Wizards because it's still Beal and Westbrook versus. So if Embiid plays, I feel like he's just going to shut down Thomas Bryant. Boston, like we said earlier, bigs can sort of feast against this team right now, but it's not clear whether the Wizards want Thomas Bryant in the paint or not, because if he's in the paint, then Westbrook can't drive as well. So he might be more out on the perimeter than otherwise, but then that's sort of giving up the advantage you would have against Boston. And then Miami, I mean, it's everybody and Bam. So I just feel like you only have 3 games and you're going up against at least 2 good teams. So that's even though I like Bryant a lot and I've already streamed him for several games, I don't think this is the week to do it.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good call. And especially if you do play in a league with a bench, I would put him on your bench for this week, especially if you've got other bigs that you can kind of rotate in there. I know some leagues, like one of my leagues, you have a bunch of utility positions and you have a forward and a guard position, but you only are really starting one center. You have to start only one center, and then you can fill your utilities any way you so choose. Thomas Bryant, not the center to be relying on for this coming week. Certainly not a guy you should be playing in DFS at all. Continue on, Natty. Who's your stud for the week?
I'm gonna stick with bigs. My stud this week is one of our boyfriends, or at least one of my boyfriends. We're going with Brook Lopez. The Bucks. He hasn't looked good so far this season, so this is why I'm using him as a stud, as sort of a surprise. The 4 games in this week, they get to play Detroit twice. That automatically should make him a stud. Also, because maybe Giannis takes at least one or both of those games off. I mean, obviously you won't take both off, but Brolo could see some minutes. They also play Utah, and he versus Rudy Gobert is very interesting because Brolo tends to drag Gobert out of the paint because of his outside shot. And then they play Cleveland. So Brook Lopez hasn't looked good this year so far. He's averaging fewer shots and fewer minutes, but I think both of those things are going to go up because after the All-Star game last year, Brook Lopez averaged 16 plus points per game on 12 plus shots per game, around 2 blocks per game, 5 boards, taking 5 threes a game, shooting them at a 36% ratio, 45% from the floor overall. Only 16 players average 16 with 5 3-pointers and those ratios, 36% from outside, 45 overall last year. And only 2 of them also averaged a block per game, the Big Cat and 3J. Now, I'm not saying that Brolo is one of those guys, but he's closer than almost everybody else in the NBA to a certain part of those stats. So if you need a big with potential to have more 3-pointers made along with blocks, he should see more minutes. Then why not take a chance on Brolo when he has 4 games and 2 of them get to be against the fucking Pistons?
And I think you're totally right in also keeping track of games that, especially with the NBA's back-to-back thing that they're doing, bad teams back-to-back or playing twice in the same span of 3 days. It has a huge likelihood that stars will be rested during those games. And so without Giannis, you're going to see more Brook Lopez. And Brook Lopez, he can turn it on still when he needs to turn it on. He was a part of that absurd Bucks 3-point shooting game against the Heat a couple days ago. He shot 3 for 4, 14 points total. He still has that touch from range, and you're right that if he's got more minutes and the offense maybe is a little more on his shoulders, or just he's more involved in the offense, there's certainly potential for him to at the very least outperform what your expectations have been for him to start this year.
Last season, excuse me, last season was a disappointment for Burlow owners. Before the All-Star break, his numbers just weren't what you were expecting, but afterwards they were. If he can get back to that, and there's no reason not to think that he can, then you have one of the most useful bigs in fantasy, a guy that gets you 3-pointers made and blocks. And the fact of the matter is, going up against the Pistons, like any week where you're playing the Pistons twice, you're going to be a stud that week. You just are. That's how that team, that's how bad Detroit looks right now. It's almost criminal not to advise people to try to stack against Detroit. Like, go get Josh Jackson, go get Jeremy Grant. Blake Griffin has a concussion. Killian Hayes is injured. Derrick Rose looks terrible. Not a lot is going right now, but like Mason Plumlee will get you minutes and the stats that go along with that for a B grade center. So they're oddly consistent, I think, but god damn, they're bad. They're so fucking bad, Pete. It's rough.
You're having a great start to the NBA season, I can tell.
I mean, it's only 4 games, but we truly do look like we could be the worst team in the league, like worse than the Knicks. The Bulls don't really impress, but yeah, it's just going to be a long season. That's all. That's all.
That's all you have to say. All right, I'll wrap up studs and duds. My stud for this week. We talked about the Lakers. The Lakers have a real nice schedule. They play the Grizzlies, the Spurs, the Bulls, and the Rockets, all of whom allow you to score a fair amount of points. And I'm not obviously going to say LeBron or AD because some of these games, especially Memphis, I know, crazy of me to be like, LeBron is your stud for this week. Especially Memphis. You could see those guys rested. I'm going to go stud of the week, Dennis Schroeder, man. Dennis Schroeder has looked tremendous for the Lakers since they signed him. 17 a game, 5 assists, 5 rebounds. He's averaging 29 minutes. He's not a guy who I think is going to see his minutes severely capped if they're in kind of on a roll or resting players. So this is a real cushy schedule this week, 4 games against bad teams that are going to let them, give up points. And I like Schroeder to continue to kind of like run this offense and obviously get you a bunch of points doing so.
The Lakers obviously said, if you come here, you'll get yours. And they're fulfilling their promise. They want him there. They see real strengths in his game. And the Lakers, they strangely seem more fun this year. Like,
don't they?
Yeah. Last year was...
I think it's the pressure of winning is off their shoulders. Like they just
maybe that's what it is. Yeah.
And they just got more energetic and fun people. Montrezl Harrell's a ton of fun. Schroeder is, enjoyable in his own way. Like you're totally right. Marc Gasol, obviously, like the few flashy Marc Gasol passes and plays we get is just fun to watch. Like I would totally agree with you where it's like, they just have a different energy about them this season. And I think my guess would be a lot of it's coming down to is like LeBron and AD, that monkey is off their back. Yes, you could still have those crazy people who are like, well, it's a bubble championship. Does it really count? Championship's a championship, people. Let's not.
For sure. They did it under more stressful circumstances. Right. Like, that's crazy. It should have an asterisk. Like, it should be underlined, like fucking bubble, like 3 months without our families. Fuck you. They just look better. They look looser. They are absolutely the team to love in LA. The Clippers can go fuck themselves.
Yeah, Clippers. Yikes.
Who cares? Who cares? So it's like when, the Yankees every once in a while, well, not for a while, but like if they are actually more lovable than the Mets, then it's sort of weird because you're supposed to be the guy that everybody hates. But the Lakers, I mean, I don't really know anyone that's hating on the Lakers this year. Even Boston fans are like, yeah, they're good. They're good.
Yeah, it's fair. It's fair. It's hard to hate on them. Awesome, dude. Well, there you go. Make sure you subscribe to the Fake Teams podcast wherever you get your podcast, iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher. That's how you'll not only get us, but also our fantasy baseball and our fantasy football podcast. Yes, we still talk fantasy football, even in the off season. That is the commitment that we at the Fake Teams podcast multiverse bring to you. No, we really try our best. Tune in next week. Natty, stay safe out there.
Have a wonderful New Year's, and everybody, don't drink too much. See you on the other side.